We talk about a new study that evaluates driver assistance systems from BMW, Mercedes, Volvo, and Tesla. We also talk about our new 2019 Corolla Hatchback here at the track and take your questions next on Talking Cars.
Hey, welcome back. I'm Keith Barry.
I'm Jay Fisher.
I'm Jennifer Stockberger.
And today, we're just going to jump right into a new safety study that came out about Tesla's autopilot. And I know Tesla's been talking about this number, 40%. They say that autopilot can reduce crashes, but there's a new number out. Jen, why don't you tell us a little more about it?
Yeah, so the 40% number came from a National Highway Traffic Safety investigation of one of the Tesla crashes where they said that there was a 40% reduction in crashes from data that Tesla had supplied with the autopilot system. So this new study by the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, IIHS, they have the unique ability to look at claims and real crashes as comparing cars where new systems are implemented over time. So this is the first time they've been able to kind of tease out, and it just, again, happens to be Tesla's, the benefits of other safety systems, automatic emergency braking, forward collision warning, versus other systems like autopilot, because they were tiered out as Tesla introduced them, and IHS is able to compare those claims.
So they took a bunch of cars that had it and a bunch of cars that didn't,
right. and then compared their claims.
Okay.
So essentially what the study says is the big benefits are coming from the automatic emergency braking, forward collision warning. They've already reported that on other vehicles. It's what we've been using as kind of the basis for us saying, hey, these are great systems. Autopilot, they couldn't really say either way. There's just not the data that says, one, it's a safety benefit or not. So they didn't draw any conclusions, certainly not 40% improvement in crashes. And, you know, in the 40% number, we've always questioned, is it because it was lumped with other safety features or not?
Okay.
So that's kind of the difference.
I've heard you, Jake, speak of it as like a convenience feature more than anything else.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you look at, you know, again, going back to the 40% number, and we questioned this right away when it came out. We said, well, how do you go and you separate the automatic emergency braking, the forward collision warning, all these systems that absolutely are proven to help, as opposed to the automation when it comes to steering. So to separate it is really important, and I'm glad the IIHS is actually showing data to kind of show what the difference is. And it really goes with what we've said is when you look at ADAS, right? So these advanced driver assistance systems. There's two kinds. There's the kinds that are really designed to intervene when you are in trouble, right? I mean, the automatic emergency braking, it senses something, it slams on your brakes. It's that kind of stuff. Those are absolutely safety features. We are reflecting that in our scores. If the data shows that they're effective, we're putting in our scores. If an automaker makes a standard, we're absolutely saying that that car is better, and we're saying, go buy that stuff.
Go get it.
But the other stuff is this automation, right? The like cruise control. I know when saying cruise control is really a safety feature. Well, some maybe I suppose you could argue it is because you don't tailgate as much.
But it's mostly convenience.
It's mostly convenience. So you have adaptive cruise control, which does speed control in front of a car in front of you, and you've got steering control. These are convenience things. There is no data right now that shows that these systems are safety features at all. Despite the fact that some automakers are trying to make it seem like they are.
Right. And if people abuse them, if they are using them in places and circumstances where
not
they
even
shouldn't.
just like watching a movie, but using them on a street where there are stoplights.
Right.
Or
things that they're not designed to take care of. So
Yeah.
that's the other piece of that puzzle.
That's
So yeah, it was
interesting.
good data, really good data.
But so basically the bottom line though is that these, and I'm looking at the study here, is
Right.
that the Model S is, you know, autopilot is kind of a murky benefit.
Still not defined. whether
But
it's a benefit
those other
or a
things,
detriment, right?
the AEB, the FCW, those things are really helpful, and you can get those on lots of cars. In fact, one of the cars we're talking about this week at the track, the Toyota Corolla Hatchback. That comes with a ton of features,
Right.
ton of those ADAS features you were talking about. And you were telling me one of the reasons you think this is a great car for like younger drivers.
Right.
For that reason.
So of course we always talk about best cars for teens and things like that. Certainly the Corolla has always been on our list. It's super reliable. It gets 32 miles per gallon. As you mentioned, Toyota Safety Sense, that AEB, forward collision warning, FCW, they're standard on many Toyotas. So we've had that on the list. What I think makes this car kind of good is it's kind of cool. certainly the hatchback, it looks cool. If you were trying to sell your teenager, and certainly most parents aren't buying new cars, but if you're trying to sell a safe, reliable car on your teen, this might help that argument because it's certainly a cool looking
Picky
car.
teen, but still,
Right.
you know, I
mean, it's a
remember what it
lucky
was like.
teen. It's
Yeah,
a
I
super
know.
lucky teen that might be getting a brand new Corolla Hatch. But but it might be a way to say, hey, I can get them what I want to give me peace of mind, but also something they're going to enjoy driving.
Or even for a more mature driver, it
Right.
might be something that you can, you know, a Corolla in the past it wasn't always the most exciting car. And this one, you're smiling.
Well, Toyota's trying to make, Corolla cool again. You know, I mean, and actually,
I felt cool when I was in it.
Well,
I
look,
upped the cool quotient.
Let's not forget. Well, maybe everyone forgot, but I mean, the '80s. There's like the Toyota Corolla, A86 Hachi Roko for people who know the Japanese word. So I mean, it is. There's a whole cult following around these 80s Corollas, rear drive, and they're drifting them, and they're doing all types of cool things with them. I still have my MR2, which is a full-out race car, and that's basically a mid-engine Corolla. It basically had the whole powertrain that was in the middle. So, I mean, there was something cool about Corollas, but for the longest time, it was kind of like this practical car. And it still is a practical car.
Yeah.
And with this Corolla Hatch, I mean, they're trying to be sportier with it, trying to be sportier looking. It certainly does drive better. I mean, it really is more engaging to drive. I mean, it's not full golf. It's not full Volkswagen Golf yet, but I mean, it's definitely down that line. And you look at the new Volkswagen Jetta, it's almost kind of it's gone backwards a bit in terms of, steering feel and engagement. So, I mean, it's kind of in the running. So with styling, I mean, certainly it's going to take a while in terms of the perception to catch up with the reality.
Yeah.
I mean, I think certainly Corolla and, Toyota Camry is going to certainly have that kind of, that people aren't going to view them as sporty cars. I mean, but they certainly have come a long way in terms of how they drive.
I mean, you're going to cross shop it against, the Civic Si, the Mazda 3. Where does this fall on the list?
Yeah. I mean, look, Mazda 3, Civic Si, I mean, they certainly are very sporty feeling vehicles, but I mean, it's in the hunt, I mean, if you're looking for something, I mean, look at the standard gear that it's got. I mean, certainly that reputation for reliability that Toyota has. I mean, the data that we have, at least on the outgoing Toyota.
Right.
And it's very complicated, by the way. I mean, let's not forget that the Toyota Corolla sedan carries on. So this is just the hatch has been
just an addition, right?
The hatch has been redesigned, and the sedan should follow the year.
And the hatch is on that new platform, right?
It's the new platform, which is the same platform it's the Camry and the new Prius, and it drives quite nice. But that old Corolla sedan is around. I mean, if you really want to look for bulletproof
There's a great used car
reliability.
for your teen.
Well,
On the
or a
used
brand
side,
new car.
Right.
I mean, they're probably going to be discounted more too.
Right.
You don't get the flashy styling and whatnot.
What I like about it is that it's one of the first Toyotas to come out with CarPlay. And I think for years,
About time.
I know. At first, I kind of got it, and Toyota's Entune was actually its own system. I thought it was pretty good. I liked it in 2011. I thought it was pretty cool. And then every other car came out with the ability to just mirror your smartphone, which is better than any infotainment system.
It's pretty slick. I know, people watching this or listening to this, I mean, not everyone's got CarPlay these days because obviously it's just a new thing. But I mean, almost all the cars that we get coming in that we're buying new absolutely have CarPlay, and Toyota's been kind of like,
You'd have to learn Toyota's proprietary system.
Right. Rather than just plug the thing in and then you're all set.
And your apps are there and everything you need is right there. So I think that's I've anecdotally heard of people who've said, I'm not going to consider a Toyota because it doesn't have that ability.
And actually Mazda has gone out and they finally adding it to Mazdas, and they're actually you could pay to retrofit them, right? I mean, actually, it ain't cheap, too.
Good.
It's like a couple $100s, though. But I think people are interested in that much. The only thing is that, and what I really think the deal with Toyota is, because reliability is such an important factor for them, I think they've been slow about this because it's something out of their control. Right? I mean, Toyota, I build the Toyota,
system.
I make it reliable.
It's not ours.
But it's like, what's going to happen is, inevitably with these systems, because the phones are updating all the time, you got a new OS or whatnot.
If my Spotify stops working, I'm going to blame it on Toyota.
My car. And so I think so we'll see how it works out. I mean, they put their toe in the water with the Avalon, which is obviously a smaller volume vehicle. Let's see what happens.
Ironically, that's a really Apple way of looking at the world. is if we can't
Keeping
control
it in your control.
Exactly.
It's funny
Yeah,
though. You
that's
say
right.
Toyota's cautious with that type of thing. On the counter side, Toyota has actually been quite kind of the front runners in terms of safety. I go back to they were the first to have ESC. Back in 2004, it wasn't even required until 2012 on their SUVs. They put it on very early. They've been very early with adopting standard AEB, forward collision warning, FCW. So
That's really funny. It's very ironic because a lot of automakers are almost like, I don't know if we want to put AEB on the car. That seems scary. The brakes going on. I don't know. But meanwhile, they're putting all this advanced electronics. They're putting 10-speed transmissions.
Which
they're
is
putting
hurting their reliability in some
that work
cases,
differently. They're doing all these chancy things.
Right.
But let's
Holding
be
back on
conservative
the
with the
safety.
safety stuff.
Yeah.
And then
Toyota's just
Toyota
the
goes
flip-flop.
and just.
And the Corolla Hatch is
Across
pretty,
the-
the
across the
interior,
board.
everything about the car is pretty conservative.
Yeah.
There's nothing about that's groundbreaking in any way. So I think personally, I'm impressed by it. It's the first Corolla I'd consider personally.
Yeah. I said, I felt a little bit cool when I was in it.
So we're going to go now to your questions, whether they're about the Corolla or anything else. And please send them along to talkingcars@icloud.com. We'd especially love it if you're one of those Apple users and you have iMessage, if you could send us a video, because then we can make you just as famous as we are and put you on the podcast. Oh boy, yeah. So wear your special shirt. So our first question is another Canadian car enthusiast. We've had a lot of those lately. This one is Roger from Canada, and he says, I've always been intrigued by how you maintain your anonymity during the car buying process. I know you purchase through dealers just like the rest of us. How do you guard against the local dealers spotting a CR buyer from a mile away? And I'll say the Groucho glasses and mustache.
Give it
every
away.
time.
They're not
every time.
They're
The
not
red
real.
nose.
Yeah, no, they're not real. They're not real. No, it's interesting. Just from my end, I've only done a couple of these car purchases because I'm pretty new. But nowadays, you don't really have to walk into a dealer until you actually go to pick up the car.
That's
So
part of it.
they never see me. They see an email address that isn't my CR email address. They get a phone number that isn't my CR phone number, and I'm just emailing back and forth. And it isn't until I show up with, I literally have to with a registration say, by the way, this car is being registered to Consumer Reports.
Right. It's at the very end of the process.
Yeah, they just think that I'm a buyer who, has a good idea of what I want and don't want to haggle too much.
This is actually a very common question.
Yeah.
Certainly when we have audiences here or anybody, because they go, Connecticut's a pretty small state. How is it possible that you are not, that you're remaining anonymous?
Yeah.
And there's a couple things just in the industry. One is we don't go to the same dealerships all the time. So you're buying a Volkswagen one day, a Toyota another day, a Tesla another day. Not that there's
Not a dealership.
but sorry. But yeah, so you're in and out. And the turnover in automobile salesmen is pretty frequent. You're not seeing the same people. I know, and I'm not buying as many cars as I used to, but in the 15 years where we were buying cars, I never went into the same dealership twice in 15 years, despite all the cars we were buying. And I'm sure we all could sit here, we could do a whole episode on dealer stories. Trust us, we are still anonymous because some of the interactions we have with dealers are kind of funny. So, you just go like, I'm definitely anonymous. Like my favorite one, and forgive me if I've told this before, but I'm in a dealership in Hartford, and I happen to live in the town that's adjacent to where the track is. And he says, so I'm doing a test drive. I think I needed to see this car, make sure it had the features we were looking for or something. So I did go to the effort. I was at the dealership, and we're driving, and he says, hey, I see you live in East Hampton. He says, do you know that the Consumer Reports test track is right near you? And I said, really?
Gee,
That's
shucks.
fascinating.
Wow.
All true. So then he goes on to tell me that they, as a dealership, have a great relationship with Consumer Reports. And that the Consumer Reports lets them, as a dealership, bring all the cars to their track. And they get to run them on the track. So he says, if you think this car's good on the road, you should feel it on the track. And I'm thinking, you are just lying to me. So he's telling me this whole, story of how they can do this. So I'm thinking, well, I'm definitely anonymous in this case. So anyway, ultimately, when we deliver the check, it does say Consumer Reports on it. They know, but it's hours or at the most within a day of us taking delivery.
Yeah.
We have the VIN number. So it's kind of funny. But he was like, oh, when he saw the Consumer Reports check, he's like, oh, I did lie to that woman.
By the time they find out, it's too late.
Yeah.
They
it is
can't
too late.
swap out the
Nope,
car.
nope.
That's
And if
right.
they try to, then we just go to another dealership.
Right, and we have been recognized. I would say people have gone into dealerships, and said, "Oh, I know you," and it's like, "Sorry, you don't get that deal," and you just turn and walk
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we try very hard.
Cool. Okay, so the second question is also about buying cars, but it's about someone who wants to buy a car. And Kevin B, I don't know where he's from, but he's looking for a Lincoln MKX. He says, my wife is in the market for a midsize SUV. She really likes the look and interior of the 2016 Lincoln MKX. CR rates it as poor for reliability. Your ratings are all green and yellow for it, which it means good or,
Right. Well, there's shades of green.
There's shades of green.
Okay, so
Shades of
darker
green.
green's excellent, lighter green's very good, yellow's average, orange is fair, and then the reds are caution poor.
And Kevin's concerned because he says that we give it a solid red with no explanation. And he says this just doesn't add up. Also, the Ford Edge is basically from the same parts bin and it gets a better rating. I plan to buy a used midsize SUV at a price point under $30K. So please provide some suggestions for him. So Jake, do you want to talk about maybe why those don't add up and why they maybe shouldn't add up? It's sort of designed that way, right?
Yeah, they don't add up, and they don't add up for a reason. So I think Kevin is looking at this the right way. You look at the verdict and you look at it, it's a red. It's really a poor reliability. What the little pieces there are looking at the different parts of it, they're intended to let you know where it has different types of problems. So on this particular car, there's several different areas where it isn't that great. It's not horrible in one area and everything else is
Right,
great.
there's no reds in
There's
it, but
several areas that it has a fair amount of problems. Well, okay, you add up a fair amount of problems or an average amount of problems with several areas. Now this is a worse car. You add up all those different problems. So that's that. Some cars, it's great everywhere else, but it's got a transmission problem, and it might be,
Could
more
be a
clear.
bigger
Here's where the
problem,
problem is.
but yeah.
So that's how to look at it. Now, his second part of his question is he's looking at the Edge, and he's totally right that the Lincoln MKX and the Ford Edge are very similar, but they do have different reliability. And we get this question a lot too. And there's reasons for that. Sometimes it's as simple as it's a different plant. And this particular case, it really comes down to equipment. So while they're kind of the same platform, what you wind up with the Lincoln is a lot more electronics. You get a lot more
you'd
power
expect, yeah.
equipment.
Yeah.
You got a lot more of that stuff. And that often is the types of things that go wrong. So, I mean, truth is, whatever you're looking at, if you buy a product that has less features, you're going to have less to go wrong. I mean, it's almost kind of like almost obvious, right?
Yeah.
You buy a refrigerator without the ice maker.
Right.
Yeah, you're
The ice
probably
maker's not going to break.
the ice maker's going to break. Exactly right. So, but advice to this guy, I mean, if you're looking for something reliable, honestly, I would say, you're looking at 2016, maybe go back a couple of years and look at like a Lexus RX. So you can get a Lexus RX, maybe not at 16, maybe a 14. A couple of years older, you're probably going to wind up with a more reliable vehicle because this is a type of vehicle that has a stellar reliability track record that's probably going to go 150,000 miles or more with very limited problems. So that would be kind of a good way to go.
And isn't the expectation that a car as young as 16, those should be almost all green? Right? I mean, and if you look at something like the RX, they're all green.
You shouldn't be having many problems at
right,
16.
with a
You're
car
exactly
that
right.
young. So, and it's compared to that year it's in. So other cars like the RX, they're all green in there.
Yeah, so might as well, unless you really, really, really love it for other reasons and you're prepared to deal with that.
Well, and there's different ways to mitigate that. You get a CPO, you get a certified pre-owned, you get extended warranty with it, but I mean, still then you're dealing with a hassle.
And then the price might be as much as that RX.
That's right.
So get realistic about it, right? Yeah. So another car shopping question, this one from Atlanta, from Kelvin, who asks, my wife currently drives a 2017 Nissan Altima SV. We've had the car for almost a year, but we're looking to upgrade her to something a little nicer with more features. We're currently cross-shopping a 2018 Nissan Maxima Platinum, a 2018 Camry XSE, and a 2018 Accord Touring. What do you think is the best car for daily commuting and weekend traveling?
Before we answer this, I'm just noting, like I look at Kevin's question and I look at Calvin's question. My wife, I just want to say, I hope you guys, you women, are involved in this purchase process, and it just happens that your husbands are writing these emails.
Yeah.
So, and if you're not, please get involved. You're going to be the ones with your butts in those cars.
And if you have questions,
and
TalkingCars@iCloud.com.
We'd love to hear. We talk about it all the time. We have such a variety of people testing the cars, particularly for comfort and visibility. And we have, short women, short men, tall women. It's really important. So I hope you guys are involved. I joke, my son all the time says to me, my wife's going to drive a Chevy Tahoe. I don't know why. But I'm like, what if she doesn't want to drive a Chevy Tahoe?
And what's she going to want you to drive?
Yeah, well, yes. And she's going to tell you you're going to drive a Corolla Hatch. So,
I had a really good, my best friend showed up one day with a car that his wife had been talking about that she really, really, really wanted.
Yep.
He wanted to surprise her with it. And, it was a nice idea, but it's a major financial commitment. Both people should be in any relationship. If two people are sharing finances and a vehicle, both people should be talking. So this one I think seems, both they've been talking behind the scenes.
It does say we, and I hope you guys are involved. That's my point. Sorry, you can go ahead and answer Calvin's
Right.
Oh, we have questions?
Oh, sorry, Calvin.
We've got a question. Amongst two great cars and three cars, two of which are really, really, really good. What do you think?
Well, we're not big fans of the Maxima for a variety of reasons. It's a big car, but it's not sporty and it's not really
The
comfortable.
four-door sports car era is kind of over.
It's 4 doors. That's the rest of it. It's a 4-door car. I'll give it that. But Camry XSE and the Accord Touring are both really good options, and it's
Character.
it's a little
about this
it's a little bit of the character of the vehicles, but I mean there's not a whole lot of daylight between them. I mean, this is one of these situations is you can make a judgment of like what seats are a little comfortable with you or what styling do you like better, and you're going to be okay. But I mean, if you really want to start, slicing it thin, I would say if you're really concerned about long-term reliability, you got to go with the Camry. I mean, it's more of a conventional engine. It's not a small displacement turbo. We don't know what's going to happen down the road with those types of things. And if you want something that's a little nicer to drive, go with the Accord, but not a whole lot of daylight.
And we did point out that when we're talking, the Touring does have the safety features.
Yeah.
So that would be another divider if it wasn't the Touring, but you're Calvin specifically saying the Touring.
Yeah, I mean, I've driven both. I like the looks of the Camry a lot now, which is something.
It's a little funkier.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I like what they've done with that. And the Accord, it blends in a little bit more, I think. But it's got that under the radar, the kind of the Q-ship look to it. But yeah, I think that this is you've got good choices to pick from.
Calvin, let your wife be the tiebreaker. Let her decide which one she likes.
So we've got one more question, and it is, hi CR, love the show podcast. We love it when you start your questions like that. From your experiences.
You're more likely to get answered if you say nice things about us.
How reliable have convertibles been over time, specifically retractable hardtops? I love the BMW 4 Series. I'm thinking about a used one, but I'm worried about long-term reliability issues with a convertible top. So today's convertibles are not like convertibles used to be in the 70s or the leak or, right?
No, I mean all of them are pretty solid, right? I mean, there's a lot of sound deadening. I mean, even if you go to a soft top, I mean, there's a good amount of sound deadening in them. I mean, it's not going to be as good as right.
Yeah.
You don't
did
get
a good sound effect,
unless you're in the Jeep or something like that. But that's not really a car.
But you
that's
like
a whole nother
that,
story.
But that's the point. Yeah.
But in terms of hardtop versus soft top, I mean, truly, there's still a lot of actuators in the soft top. I mean, this is where the things that are going to go wrong. It's a lot of those actuators, a lot of that power equipment. Those are the things that are going to break. So I wouldn't say you're actually going to be worse with a hard top. In fact, probably the opposite. You might be better off in the long term with the hard top because the soft tops, they weather. I mean, it's soft.
Fabric. It's still fabric.
You're going to have to replace it. It's going to weather. It's going to rip down the road. You're not going to have that with the hard top.
Yeah, one thing I would say, and I don't know how you guys are planning to use it, but if you're road tripping and you have luggage, the hard tops, because they do typically retract in, they steal all your trunk space if there is, and it's probably minimal anyway, but just keep that in mind if you have luggage or stuff you need to carry that you're probably going to lose. Try it with it down, before you go and buy.
And my advice is kind of another drawback. I love that 4 Series with a hard top. I've driven it a couple of times, and you're right. The sound deadening. You don't realize, even on a rainy day, you don't realize you're in a convertible. But you do realize it when you're checking your blind spot, or when you're backing up. So a 24, a used model may or may not have something like a reverse camera, or it may not have blind spot warning. So you might want to look into that, and try to parallel park in the thing when you're on the test drive, because those pillars are huge in that car. So
yeah, the typical one is when you look left and you're changing lanes, or you're going to the left, you look left and all of a sudden all you see is pillar. So
now when the top's down, you don't have any blind spots. It's
always drive
really
with the
great
top down.
visibility.
It's all good, and then you don't have to worry about durability either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just I hope you live in somewhere in the Southwest. Excellent. Well, that's all the time we have this week. But if you have any questions, we'd love to answer them, whether or not they begin with compliments. TalkingCars@iCloud.com. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next week.